Ellie and welcome back to Arcadia, my self-converted Toyota Hiace, which I'm currently travelling Australia's east coast in. And today is part 2 of my Fraser Island vlog. Fraser Island is the world's largest sand island, which lies just off the Queensland coastline near Harvey Bay. And in part 1 of this vlog, I documented the remote Fraser Island experience because I bought these tours as a package. So check out that video if you haven't already. But today I will be doing the Fraser Explorer Tour, which is the more touristy areas, so let's get into it. I'm Ellie Wilder and you're watching Wilder in Motion. So I met the bus at the marina, which then drove to the public ferry terminal. So this is how most people access the island, including people who live there or people who are taking vehicles over there. So it is not a private boat like the remote Fraser Island experience was. And it also approaches from the southern side and takes you around to the eastern side, as opposed to yesterday on the remote experience where we had gone straight to the western side. Upon arriving at the island, we went into a couple of these four-wheel drive coaches, which was a pretty serious piece of machinery, and then we started driving around the island. And you really get a sense of why this is four-wheel drive access only. I was expecting it to be sand, given that this is what the whole island is made out of. I wasn't expecting it to be quite so soft, and it was definitely very bumpy, and there were a few points where I thought we would almost get bogged. We then arrived in Yurong. I wasn't actually aware that there were any permanent residents at Fraser. I thought it was just a resort, but there were some permanent residents here. Before we drove along 75 Mile Beach, which was absolutely spectacular, a huge wide sand beach, and it was a brilliant day for it as well, to just get the colours along the water and the reflection of the clouds. We then arrived at the very famous Shipwreck on 75 Mile Beach, and it also happened to be Anzac Day, which is a commemorative day to honour the Australian and New Zealand Armed Forces, and I was feeling bad that I wasn't making it to a dawn service since this was the only day that the tour had available. However, this ship was actually a hospital ship at one point during its diverse and vivid life for the Anzacs, and so they were holding a service there. And the tour guide actually said normally there would only be 5 cars max at this site, but there were at least 100 to 150 cars there and heaps of people attending the service, which was really nice to see. And so I had a bit of a wander around the ship, which was pretty spectacular. I don't think I've been to a shipwreck that was on the beach before. And this is a shot taken with my ultra-wide lens on my new phone, which I think looks pretty cool. We then headed back into the coach to drive a little further down the beach to another tourist attraction, the Pinnacles. I personally don't think that this was a must-see. They're basically some rocks made of sand, and they have some nice colours and all that, but given the limited time, I would have rather spent more time at this place, which was Eli Creek, which is a slow-moving creek, which if you have a tube or a floaty, you can just slowly float down, but it was also very busy there as well. One thing that was really crazy was because it had this sandy bottom and super clear water, it was completely different to any creek that I normally would see in Australia that would be rocks or mud at the bottom. We then headed back to Yurong to have lunch at the resort there, which was pretty decent food, but it was a full 45 minutes allocated, and I would have rather spent more time doing something else, for example, exploring the forest there, which I wasn't expecting to be so different and diverse from other bushland that I've been to before. I certainly could have done a much longer hike through this had I had more time and been on my own, because it was very picturesque and really different, the fact that it was all growing within the sand of the island. And again, these crystal clear creeks, honestly, it was just the slight reflection of the water was the only way you could even tell that there was water at all. We then headed back into the four-wheel drive, which as you can see I'm in the front, which made all the difference, and it kind of felt like a roller coaster. It was really fun, and we arrived at Lake Mackenzie, which is kind of the crown jewel of Fraser Island, and it was so beautiful. You could easily spend a whole day here on these picturesque, almost white sand beaches and super clear water. I think probably the clearest water that I've swum in my life, and the way that the light just reflected into the water so that you could see where the sandbank just suddenly drops off. And here you can really get a sense of exactly how clear the water is and just how deep it goes once it drops off there. It's also fresh water, so it made a nice change to not have my hair filled with salt after going swimming. We then headed back onto the coach to head back to the ferry, and yes, all of the roads are two-way, and this car took ages to pull over, even though it's obvious that they should go to the side and not the huge coach. We got back on the ferry just as the sun was setting and waved goodbye to Fraser Island and timed it just right so that I could watch the sunset on one side of the boat and the moon rise on the other, which was a beautiful way to end an enjoyable day of sightseeing. And once we made it back to the mainland, the bus took me back to the marina. Ultimately, I was really glad I did this tour as well as the remote Fraser Island experience because it was great to do the four-wheel driving. It was so much fun, especially being in that front passenger seat. Also, 75 Mile Beach, Eli Creek and Lake Mackenzie were big highlights. If I were to choose between the two, I would probably pick the remote experience. It's just more my style and it's also significantly cheaper. The package discount that I got isn't available anymore. I think you can just get a small discount now if you get them both together. However, if I were to do this again, if I was with someone else, I would hire a four-wheel drive and then self-drive this so we could take our time and spend as much time at each destination as we wanted, plus I would have someone else there in case we got bogged. I hope you found this video interesting or entertaining or useful. Leave me a comment below if you have any questions about it, and check out my previous van life content linked in the description. And if you want to catch new van life videos every single Saturday, then be sure to like, subscribe. I'll see you next time.